As the late, great Martin Luther King once said, the arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Meaning, though it may take some time, good generally triumphs over evil. And that may be what is on the case or on the cusp of taking place in the state of Minnesota. I want to bring this to you because this is what is needed around the country, if not around the world, in ride-sharing markets. The city of Minneapolis, if I'm correct, they have a minimum wage of $15.57 per hour. Now, that's obviously considerably more than a host of other locations in this country, particularly if you're down south. You're not getting anywhere near a $15 minimum wage by law. But 3 proposed changes to rideshare earnings are being proposed because they want the drivers to also have a floor, a minimum earnings that is comparable to the actual minimum wage. Here are the 3 proposed changes. And I'm reading because Seattle did something similar where drivers are now getting like $1.50 a mile or some shit like that. That is excellent. New York did it, I believe, last year, where drivers there too are now getting a minimum wage. But as I stated a moment ago, virtually all of the other markets in America, drivers don't earn a minimum wage. You actually can be driving for Uber or Lyft and losing money in a host of markets if you take the wrong trip. Laws like this would help assure that that is unlikely to take place. But here are the 3 changes they're proposing. Number 1, which the drivers overwhelmingly favor, $1.40 per mile or 52 cents per minute. So wait time, things like that. Currently in my market, it is less than 75 cents per mile. And I think the wait time is around a dime. So that's how low it is. And it's like that in a host of markets. With Minneapolis trying to give drivers $1.40 per mile, I can tell you this. No market in America that has not been the beneficiary of some type of legislation is getting anywhere near $1.40 per mile. Most American markets, the drivers making well under $1 per mile. It is as simple as that. That just about, I would say probably 99% of rideshare markets in this country, the drivers are making well under $1 per mile. There are markets out there where the drivers are making in the 60s, literally less than 70 cents per mile. So this is huge for Minneapolis. Now, there are 2 other changes. Obviously, $1.40 a mile and 52 cents a minute is not something that Uber or Lyft would favor. But check out what they're actually offering. Uber and Lyft actually agreed to pay $1.17 per mile and 34 cents per minute in wait time. Now, this would also meet the minimum wage threshold, but it doesn't leave any room for vehicle repairs and expenses and things like that. So even going from $1.40 per mile to $1.17 a mile is still significantly higher than what most drivers in the U.S. are earning. $1.17 per mile would be a huge improvement in earnings for most rideshare drivers out there. Do you know in your market how much you earn per mile? And that is also, if you do, state it in the comments. But that is also a product of lack of transparency in rideshare. There is no predetermined earnings per mile if you're dealing with upfront fares. This upfront fares where they're giving you now, where they give you a trip and they tell you how much you're going to get paid for that trip. There's no way to determine what that pays, because if the trip causes you to run into traffic, or maybe a train is coming by and you have to sit there and wait for 10 minutes, you don't get paid anything extra. So let's say they gave you a trip, told you the trip is going to be 20 miles. We're going to give you such and such money. And you did your calculations. Because they don't account for traffic or unexpected wait times, that number could change at any time. With an upfront mileage in minutes set in the agreement, that doesn't happen. You no longer are expected to donate time. which is a huge complaint for rideshare drivers. If you tell me a trip's going to take 20 minutes and it takes 40 minutes, why the hell am I not being compensated for that? This would eliminate that. So drivers prefer the $1.40, 52 cents a minute model. Uber is willing to give $1.17, 34 cents a minute. A third option, flat per minute rate. Now, we don't know what the number would be, but they would just simply say when you're logged in, you get a flat rate per minute. And this would also compensate drivers for the time we spend driving to pick someone up. Remember, if you take a trip where a passenger's 5, 10, 15 miles away, you generally don't get shit for the drive going to get that person. And I strongly believe you should, just like most drivers do. But that's the reason I don't drive very far to pick people up, because it's all at your expense generally. Most of that is at your expense. So driving 10 miles to pick someone up makes no sense, particularly if you can't be assured that passenger is really going to travel that far when they get in your vehicle. What sense does it make to drive 8 miles to pick up a passenger that wants to go on a trip that's only 2 miles long? You're losing money. This is what we talk about when we say you can actually lose money in a host of Uber and Lyft ride-sharing markets if there's no floor. You take a trip like that where it tells you the passenger is 10 miles away. You get to the passenger and they just want to go around a corner to a gas station to pick up some cigarettes and come back home. You're getting a total of maybe 2 miles and you drove all that distance. That happens all the time in ride sharing. So a floor like this, where there's a minimum wage, would help assure that a driver is compensated and don't have to lose money on certain trips. Particularly if you drive in markets like myself where they don't even tell you where passengers fucking going to go. We get trips all the time in my market where it tells you this is where the passenger's located. You don't find out the destination until you get there. So in those trips, it really makes no sense to drive a long distance because you have no clue how long or short the trip is going to be until the passenger is in your damn vehicle. But what do you think about what Minneapolis is proposing? Perhaps a fourth option, if you have one suggested. But I want to give a shout out to Minneapolis drivers because they actually seem determined to get what's right. They fought very hard last year, year before last, had the entire state willing to give them extra monies. And they had the state government on their side, had won the Senate and the House in Minnesota, but the damn governor, Tim Walz, shot it down, which is why I stated I believe that Uber, particularly in my opinion, but maybe Uber and Lyft, got to the governor, maybe patted his pockets or did something behind the scenes. But they shot it down at the state level. So then the drivers fought back again to get it at the city level. And once again, the mayor's administration, just like the governor, was going to give it to him. And for some strange reason, just like at the state level, the mayor decided to veto it. Once again, listen, folks, when you hear Uber and Lyft talking about they got to pay back their investors and you find yourself wondering, why the hell does Uber need so much money when they have no overhead? How could they be losing money when they have no overhead? We're the ones losing our cars, paying expenses. Why do they need, how could they be losing money? It's shit like this. Padding pockets, paying off lawsuits, doing things behind the scenes. That's where the investors' money originally went. We got to get a stronghold in this city. The taxis are fighting back hard. We got to pay people off. We got to bribe politicians. We got to do shit. That's where their money originally went, if you ask me. So this case is a third try for Minneapolis drivers. It looks like they're about to win because they got it down to 3 different models, and they even now have Uber willing to cooperate and give them at least $1.17 per mile, at least that much. So they certainly are making some inroads. However, you're going to get the same damn pushback we get in every single market. If you raise the fare, the passengers are going to have to pay more. I absolutely hate that shit, because since ride sharing has come on the scene, drivers are making less and the trips for passengers have went up. So the moment we suggest the drivers should get paid more, they start threatening the passengers that we're going to have to charge you more. They're fucking doing that already anyway. The salaries, the earnings for drivers have went down significantly over the last decade that Uber and Lyft have been on the scene. Yet the cost to get in an Uber or Lyft and take a trip has went up significantly. So that should require some explaining to do on its face. If you're going to say that the increase in pay to drivers will make fares go up, well, why did the decrease to drivers not make the fares go down? Quit the bullshit. This is what happens when they have the benefit of lack of transparency. Because if they had to tell the passenger how much the company's getting, how much the driver's getting per trip, this would have been as clear as day. This is why Uber and Lyft continues to fight against being totally transparent. Looks like Lyft is starting to make some changes to be a little bit more transparent. Uber don't want to tell you shit. Nevertheless, what do you think? Perhaps a fourth option? Think the 14th Valentine's Day strike will come close to getting shit like this in most markets? I don't. Nevertheless, as always, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.